What is up, hotties? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Blaiden Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time in Matthew Spinauer and Theo Ash. We are here with a great episode for you, recapping the divisional round playoff games. And man, we just got done watching the most Cowboys game of all time, but we won't talk about that right off the bat. We'll save that one. We'll go in the order that they happen. But before we get into those games, Matt, Theo, how are you guys doing today?
I'm great, man. I'm fantastic.
I'm
You're
doing
fantastic
good.
too.
Yeah, I'm pretty good. I went to Miami. I went to BLAIDEN's last night to go watch some of the games because I'm like, why not? Because I'm stuck in my house right now. And then I wake up this morning and there's a snow emergency. And of course, the route from Miami, Ohio to Columbus is like 30 minutes of just like back country roads that aren't going to get cleared in a snow emergency. So I'm stuck here, and that's why I'm here with bad lighting on my phone for, the podcast. And I'd like to apologize to each and every viewer.
It's okay.
For ruining the quality.
We forgive you.
I get that. I was just out a little. There's a snow emergency every day in Flagstaff, which is just kind of a fun little quirk of the town. And like my girlfriend lives on a hill, like in a complex that's like in a bunch of hills, and it's not a good place to drive. And I just go through there, and it's a bunch of NAU students who live in the desert and just have like never seen snow before, and they're all just in their two-wheel drive cars, and it's just been a disaster navigating. So yeah. I can relate. But you've had good days. That doesn't count as a bad day.
No, I've just been hanging out pretty much. It's just regular stuff. Although you just started something new. I feel like you got to bring up. You just started the draft Substack.
The Substack, yes. So I'm looking forward to that. If anyone,
can I ask why you chose? I was like, oh, it's not like a Patreon or anything, because I know that's kind of something that we've talked about. It's like, it's like make an OnlyFans. But
I could put them on OnlyFans, and that would honestly make me a lot more money. I like Substack more than I like Patreon by a decent amount. It's the same service. I just like the layout and the platform more, just a personal preference. So
much for
if
that
you guys
Patreon
wanted
sponsorship,
yeah, well. It is what it is. But yeah, I decided that if I'm going to do these prospect write-ups, honestly, like this might be just kind of news for the platform in general. But like, honestly, I'd like to stop posting on TikTok as much as I do. And it's like, I could probably just put this analysis behind a paywall and make more money doing it. And I don't know. Not that I won't post on there anymore, but it just feels like I put in too much work to just post all my thoughts on TikTok for free all the time. I don't know. And some people will call me a sellout, and I'll still post on there and whatnot, but it just feels like it might be time to be a little bit more professional. I don't know. I don't know, but I'll still post on there and everything. But if you do want some like every single player that I scout this year, I will put on Substack. I'll put a couple of them on TikTok, but every single one I'll do a full write-up and breakdown on Substack. So if you want to head on over there, there's some free articles on there of guys I've already posted thoughts about it. And there are a lot of the big ones: Will Anderson, Bryce Young, Jackson Smith and Jigba and whatnot. So I've already posted some of my thoughts on those guys on I think I just called it Draft Time because it asked me to name. So it's just called like Draft Time. And I'm also thinking about maybe doing I don't know if I could say this on this podcast, but me and a friend from college, Cole Topham, who's a draft writer for the Chargers USA Today page, might do a little draft podcast because I know he's going to be scouting a lot as well, and we might put that behind there as well. So I've been working on that. I've been working on scouting a little bit, and I watched a really good movie, one of my favorites. It's really pretentious and long and maybe boring to a lot of you, but Andrei Rublev, I think is how you pronounce his name. It's a Russian movie about a medieval like monk / painter, and that movie rules. So I watched that. I saw a bird I've never seen before. I saw an evening grosbeak, and I've been scouting. So pretty good run that I've been on this weekend, and there's obviously been a lot of games.
That's good.
But anyway.
This episode of Stay Hot is brought to you by our friends over at HelloFresh. You've got New Year's goals, and HelloFresh is here to help you achieve them. Looking for an easy way to eat well and save money this year? Cut back on expensive takeout and delivery and get started with HelloFresh. You'll love how fast, easy, and affordable it is to whip up a restaurant-quality meal right in your own kitchen. Skip the snowy schlep to the grocery store and stock up on snacks, sides, desserts, and more at the HelloFresh Market. Simply add these staples and sweets to your weekly order, and they'll arrive at your doorstep along with your meals. Me personally, I've made some of these meals, and they're amazing. My sister loves them. So go on over to HelloFresh.com/StayHot21 and use the code StayHot21 for 21 free meals plus free shipping. Again, that is HelloFresh.com/StayHot21 and use the code StayHot21 to jumpstart your New Year's resolution with HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. Let's talk about some freaking football, man. Started off yesterday with the Jags keeping it decently close with the Chiefs, which is kind of where we were like, they could probably keep it, but Chiefs ultimately have a little bit too much firepower with Kelsey, and if you make any sort of mistake on Jacksonville's end, you're probably going to lose, and that's kind of how it went. But
I mean, the big story is the Mahomes injury.
Yeah.
I think that's the big thing. I think that I felt good about it. It's like, okay, you see the Chiefs pulling away. Jaguars secondary just can't hang. And then Mahomes gets seemed like a pretty rough ankle sprain. He's not moving right for the rest of the game, and the Jaguars kind of pull a little bit closer. I wasn't super and impressed with the Jaguars, even though it was a one-score game. And I'm pretty worried about the Chiefs going forward.
Mahomes, the report is that he does look substantially better today than he did yesterday, which I guess what else are they going to say? He looks terrible and he's not going to be ready.
He's way worse.
But I guess that's at least some positivity going
Orlando
forward.
Brown stepped on his foot in the locker room today, and
he got angry. It's like, just put him out of commission. No. I guess that is the big concern. Theo, what are your thoughts on
I thought
this?
that Spagnuolo, does it end with an O or an A? I forget. But Ed Spags, he called a great game, man. And he's going to blitz. He's one of the few guys out there who will heat you up. I mean, that's not really where the league is right now. The guys who are willing to do that are few and far between. And it's risky to do that to Lawrence and Doug Peterson and those guys. They've been really good against the blitz all year, if you look at the numbers. And so, it was risky to do that. But I thought outside of the one look, they got him on one look where Christian Kirk was in the backfield and he was on Karlaftis one-on-one and they scored that touchdown. But outside of that, it was pretty tough sledding. They were getting the ball out fast. The game plan was pretty conservative, right? It was a bunch of stuff to the flats and they were getting tackled immediately and there really wasn't much down the field. And eventually it all set up that end around, which put them in scoring position. And that was a good call. And everyone was like, oh, Peterson cooking, like, oh, what a play call. But man, they had to throw so many screens just to set that up that it almost was like it didn't quite the positive that what came from all those screens was not quite overcoming how conservative the game plan was overall. And yeah, it was just a fantastic performance from, I think, the Chiefs defense and the blitzers and the defensive coordinator. They came in and it was risky. It's risky to blitz like that, but they took care of business. And like you said, Blaiden, you need the breaks if you're going to beat the Chiefs. And fumbling inside the 5, dropping a pick, that dropped pass from Kirk on the 55-yard bomb. Yeah. Like if those things are working against you, like you're not beating Kelsey and even peg leg Mahomes. So yeah, it is what it is. But I think for the Jaguars next year, the front 7 players are going to have to take a big step up, right? There wasn't much pressure on Mahomes once he hurt his ankle. Like there were some times where he kind of had to move around and whatnot, but they weren't bottling up the run. They were able to lean on Pacheco had a nice game. They were able to lean on that a little bit, and they didn't really lay many more hits on Mahomes. Like after he got hurt, they couldn't really take advantage of that. Wasn't much from Trayvon Walker in this game. Wasn't much from Allen. None of the linebacker. Kelsey had like 15 catches on 20 targets. So like none of the safeties or linebackers could contain him. And it's not going to be really easy. I don't think they're going to spend any resources there next year just because they've spent so many first round picks on linebackers and D linemen and whatnot. It'll be really important for them next year for Trayvon Walker to take a step as a pass rusher and Devin Lloyd to take a step as a coverage guy and not look lost so much out there and, avoid getting benched. Play like he did at the beginning of the season before he hit that rookie wall the entire time. So that's going to be really important development to watch next year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think people are still maybe a little bit in the mindset of just like happy to be here for the Jaguars and not really judging them on maybe the same like criteria that they would like other playoff teams. But now it's like, okay, now we're into the offseason.
Lawrence is on a rookie contract, right?
Yeah, it's like your time to win is now. The window is now. Great, right. Like you pull it off this year, you turn it around, cool. And with like the edge rushers, expectations should be high. Like Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker, what'd you spend to get those guys? You spent two top for a first and what, the seventh?
Yeah.
The sixth, something like that.
I think so. I believe that's right.
So I 100% agree. And I'm like, man, the Chiefs don't have that strong of an offensive line overall. It's not like the Chiefs have some like Eagles offensive line. You're like, well, you don't get ready of what's going to happen. But I think the Jaguars defense is kind of a long way. I was really unimpressed by the Jaguars offensive line. I think they've got the big pieces in place, obviously, when you got the coach and you got the quarterback on the rookie deal. Yeah, a lot of teams probably wish they were them, but there's a lot on that roster that needs work.
I was really unimpressed with the Jags offensive play calling, Theo. I know you mentioned like the screens and how like, those were like setups, but they weren't really that productive of setups. Bro, I mean, the fact that they just went run, screen, run. And it's like, why are you playing so heavily into the teeth of this defense when you know that I feel it's an aggression thing. I think they should have been more aggressive offensively, and I'm a little disappointed.
I mean, the one shot they took the whole day that I can remember was the drop.
Yeah,
the dropped Kirk play. Yeah, I think that was really the only thing.
And they never went back.
I guess the last play where they threw that pick on the blitz, and there was a lot of free runners that on the day. There seemed to be like the communication was a little bit off, and like there was a play where Lawrence got popped, and it probably could have gotten called where it was a total blown protection on that last pick. Someone was flying directly up the A gap, and Lawrence maybe should have checked it down, or he took that shot, and it was an amazing pick, right? It's tough to be like, oh, horrible Lawrence, like that was a one-handed like behind him type of pick. But yeah, he was forcing some things for sure. That wasn't even the worst offense of that next year, that game. So next year, a lot of it'll come down to Calvin Ridley, right? And a lot of it'll come down to what he looks like. You don't want Jamal Agnew ever playing like real snaps for you, even if there is an injury, right? He's a kicker. He's a great kick returner,
but he's like, if he was a good wide receiver, he'd be playing wide receiver. If he was a good running back, he'd be playing running back.
Add a little bit more depth there. We'll see what they do along the line. The pieces they're in a tough spot with the line because it's not an elite line, but there's not a lot of glaring weaknesses that where it's very easy to upgrade from. Like there's no,
that's kind of how I feel about a lot of their roster. Honestly, it's like with the front seven too. It's like
it'll come down to development.
They just kind of need the guys they have need to be better. Is my take.
Right. And that could happen with Doug Peterson and this coaching staff, right? It's I don't think it's going to be this big spending year for them. I don't think they're going to add DeAndre Hopkins.
Their projected cap space is negative $20 million.
How?
Right.
I'm looking at this right now.
What are they buying?
Christian Kirk, Cam Robinson, they're paying $22 million. Brandon Scherf is getting 20.9. Alokun is getting 19. Shaquille Griffin's getting 17.
They were big spenders last year, and that's what they had to do. Yeah.
Right, well,
that Jags tax, man.
I'm really holding strong to the guys I have currently need to be better.
Yeah, all the young pieces need to develop in a big way next year for them to win the Super Bowl. And they need to, if maybe they can draft just a superstar. We'll see who that could be. But anyway, as for the Chiefs, I think, and maybe just kind of an expansion of, and talk kind of like big picture, what it takes to win in the playoffs. You can't be one dimensional and win the game. And I think one thing that I took away from that Chiefs game was Pacheco can give you that second dimension. And you've got Creed Humphrey, you have got Joe Tooney, you've got like a good interior offensive line. You've got a decent running back who can, pick up yards after the catch. He's more powerful, way more powerful with better vision than Clyde Edwards-Helaire. If Mahomes is hurt, don't ask him to do too much. Like, can you be two-dimensional? Like, that can win you the game. And you can't win in the playoffs being one-dimensional. And maybe Mahomes being a little bit banged up will force him to lean into that more. And maybe that'll be good for them. I don't know. That's kind of maybe like, obviously it's not good for them that Mahomes is hurt, but if you can still get good play from him and you can also lean on that running game a little bit more and it works out for you, then I could see it a little bit, but it's really tough with this Bengals team playing at the level they're playing at.
It's tough. It's going to be tough to run at DJ Reader. I'm kind of interested. I mean, I don't want to get too much into it, but today I think you saw probably like 7 or 8 plays where Bengals get pressure, albeit on a Bills line that is not particularly impressive. And it was up the middle often, where Allen then sidesteps to the right for the 100th time and gets away and goes and does something. If you've got a Mahomes that isn't going to be able to do that, and obviously we don't really know the status of his ankle, I'm pretty worried regardless. And I agree, like leaning more into the run definitely will be good, but I think the lack of being elusive is just going to be killer.
I do think the difference with the Chiefs, I think you'll see more quick passes, though. The Bills don't really do the whole quick game, but I think the Chiefs will be like, okay, we'll throw a hitch to Kelsey here. We'll let Juju try and do something. We'll let Sky Moore or Kadarius Toney try and create something.
I'll be really interested to see what Lou Anarumo does, because there's 2 ways to approach this, right? If Mahomes is injured, you don't think like he can move around as well. Are they going to blitz him and try to get him to move off of his spot? Or are they going to try to get him to hold the ball longer and think like that's going to make him move around more? Or probably both, because Lou Elmer, like they can do both over there in Cincinnati. But I almost wonder if they're going to try to overload one side, like really try to overpower one side of the line. Maybe Orlando, both tackles aren't that good, and try to like flush him right or whatever, and try to get him to throw on the run a little bit more. I think that that's a decent idea. Whereas if you rush 3, there's a decent shot that he can just stand there and you won't have to,
I mean, I thought Hendrickson was getting a decent amount of pressure today, just off the edge by himself. They might not really have to do a whole lot of sending guys. You could probably rush 3 or 4.
I think the fact that you're saying either way works probably says a lot about how bad. And again, we don't know how bad it's going to be. But if it's as bad as it was, like while he was in that game, like he could not move at all, man. And it was super funky to watch him play. If he's like that, I think either way, you're going to give the Chiefs big problems. And I'd say mixing it up and not letting them know what's coming is probably the thing that would make it the hardest.
Yeah.
And I definitely... Go ahead, Blaiden.
I was going to say, if we want to move on to the Bengals-Bills game, because that kind of seems the trajectory that we're on. Bro, the Bengals... Matt and I were talking during this game. The Bengals just looked like they were moving at a different speed. Offensively,
totally.
Defensively. Like, we're watching Edmonds, and I'm like, it looks like he's moving through concrete.
Right.
Like, I've never seen him move this slow in my life.
It made me wonder if they were wearing the right cleats.
I said exactly that.
Because I remember the Vikings playing the Packers and they didn't have the right cleats on and they were slipping and sliding around. It's like, I don't understand why the Bengals just look like they're in a different gear right now. And the other thing about this game, we talked about all the injuries that the offensive line have had. Lyle Collins and Jonah Williams are terrible, right? They're terrible. Maybe the backups are just
I swear to God,
better.
I was like, all of a sudden, like they're running really, really well, and it's like, oh my God. And part of that was Mixon had a very good game. Shout out to him. But it's like, man, this offensive line looks pretty good, and they're getting the ball out real quick. And honestly, like, yeah, these backup offensive linemen, these aren't the backup offensive linemen from last year. These are at least some different depth guys. So I thought, I mean, obviously, all good today from Cincinnati. It was ridiculous.
I mean, they just destroyed the Bills in the trenches. And I mean, what does that say about everybody on that? Everyone, the halftime speech for the Bills should have just been like, let's find the nearest weight room and do what we can in 15 minutes. Like, they shouldn't have said, like, they should have just been throwing, like, guys, quickly.
Push-ups, let's get...
They just got bullied. They just got completely bullied. And, you know, the Von Miller move was risky, right, this offseason. He's older. They gave him a long deal for a lot of money, and it's because they knew they needed him. They knew they needed him in the worst way, because these are just their guys are not bendy. They're not very athletic. They were light, and they were just light today. They were getting pushed around. They needed to all hit the weight room. Everyone in that front seven. It was crazy, and I think the snow has something to do with it. I think that, you know, they're being reactive instead of when it comes to the run game, right? You're kind of have to defend against this wave coming against you a lot of the time. Right. I feel like that kind of is advantage run defenders, whereas pass rush is advantage run pass rushers. Okay, so I think maybe the snow had a lot to do with that maybe not getting their footing in the same way the offensive line did. But yeah, I mean, it was embarrassing for them. All right, and it's helpful when you can just to hold the lead once you get up, and you have to hold the lead. You can just hand it off and pick up 5 yards every time, right? And that's what got teams in trouble. That's what got the Bills in trouble when they were trying to hold that lead in Miami. They were just bombing it down the field. That's what got the Chargers in trouble. You got to be multifaceted, because these good teams can come back, and if you can't, like the Eagles and the Bengals today, they were able to control it from start to finish because against really good teams, because they are multidimensional and they're multifaceted. So yeah. And it's like what we've been saying with the Bills all year, or for a while at least. It's like just Allen and Diggs. And I think you look at the final 4 teams left, and it's the best 4 rosters in the league. And, you know, people can talk all this shit about Diggs and Allen and whatnot, but like the roster top to bottom is just not as good as the Bengals roster. It's not as good as just like the 49ers roster.
The offensive line is just not where it needs to be for the run game to be any sort of serious threat. And it would be one thing if you had like a stacked sort of receiving crew. And I'll say that I think they're maybe a little bit better than you say. I'm probably just a hair higher on them, but they don't have any game breakers outside of Diggs, and it makes it tough. And then defensively, it's like I think a lot of the guys on the Bills defensive line are maybe more well known than they actually are good to some sort of extent. It's like everyone knows them, but today we saw him get bullied. Or like Edmonds is a big name. And
Edmonds had a really rough game.
He got beat to the edge every single play. Matt Milano was probably the only one on that defense that looked remotely feasible out there. But I mean, everyone else was just getting cooked. And this was supposed to be White had a really bad game, multiple defensive pass interference calls. I mean, this was supposed to be the best defense in football. This is supposed to be the best secondary in football. And I get they were injured. I get White missed a lot of time this year. Micah Hyde's not there, but they just have not lived up at all to who they kind of feel
like. They kind of feel like it kind of feels like their window is, you know, these were their best years to win it. And that's the other thing that's a little bit disappointing with this team. I don't think they're going to make any real coaching moves. They don't have a good draft pick. Last year was the big Von Miller signing, and they you know, that was, I don't think they're going to dip into the free agency pool. I don't think they can dip into the free agency pool like that twice, 2 years in a row. Right. So they're going to have to, I mean, they're just going to have to be healthier next year. And I don't know what they're going to change, because this is 2 years in a row that it was the divisional round, right? It was a divisional round exit, and they need a lot of help. They need a lot of pieces on that offensive line. They need a lot of pieces. I think they need another piece on that front seven. They need another piece in that receiving core. They could maybe use another corner. Like it's really not a roster that to me is like it could always happen with Allen. It could always happen with Allen, but it's just a little bit tough to see like how they get way substantially
it's
better.
Kind of the same thing as the Jaguars,
year.
where it's like, if I told you that Trey White and Elam were like a really good cornerback duo next year and they're playing lights out, you can see that. You can see how, if I told you that like the Bills front seven all of a sudden were really put it together, you could see that happening. You know?
If Rousseau like balled out
and
next year, or Ed Oliver just took his game.
It's like, you can see how that works. But as of right now, it's definitely a little bit tough to see what you're going to change. And last year, it's like, damn, we lost one that, like, what are you going to do? You know, this year you just got crushed.
But even last year, it's kind of I think it's kind of the same problem where you had, their offense played better in last year's game, but the defense again was supposed to be
gassed. That's what it came down. Last year they got gassed and they didn't get they're not the team that got the ball last. Truly, that's what that game was. Yeah. I promise you.
It was that particular game. I do agree that the offenses were just scoring at will, but they've got Jordan Poyer is a free agent after this season. Tremaine Edmonds is a free agent. Roger Saffold a free agent. And Devin Singletary, which whatever. So those are some. Sorry, Devin, but like I don't think that he's quite as
they're prepared. Reality.
They're prepared. I feel like they can replace Devin Singletary, but so they're probably going to have to replace. Edmonds or Poyer. Those guys play basically every single snap for them, and so does Saffold. So those are three, cornerstone pieces, and they're probably not going to retain all three. So we'll see. And I think Burrow versus Allen is the big debate. That's the big Twitter debate. I think that's what people maybe are tuning in to hear is, who is QB2 in the league right now. And I honestly see both arguments. I really do. I think that Allen is a little bit more of a, he's more athletic. He can access every single throw on the field. The Bills' offense was better overall this year with, I think, a little bit less help. Like I said, it's just kind of Diggs. And, the Bengals have, I do think they have a better running game. It is, they don't really lean on it very much, but when they do hand the ball off, it tends to go all right. There's some stinker games in there, but I know the numbers over the past couple of weeks would suggest that they're actually pretty good when they do hand the ball off. They just don't do it that often. Mm-hmm. So I think I do think Allen carried the Bills a little bit more than Burrow carried the Bengals, but that's cutting hairs because the Bengals would also they really wouldn't be much without Burrow. It was what a performance. I don't think he held the ball. I don't think Nate Tice said this, but I don't think he said, I don't think Burrow has hitched twice all day. It's he hit the top of his drop. Ball is out. Perfect accuracy. It really is Brady-esque. He's throwing to guys 6 yards before they break. And it's like, what are you supposed to do when he just puts it on him perfectly? And, he's just I don't want to say he just wins, but he has.
I feel like for almost every player, there's some guys are maybe a little bit too prone to trying to play hero ball and extend the play and do stuff out of structure when they shouldn't. And some guys are maybe not quite good enough to actually do stuff out of structure. And Burrow strikes me as kind of the perfect, middle ground between is really great within structure and has done a really great job out of structure, extending plays, but doesn't force things to go out of structure when they don't need to. I think that's what really separates them.
Yeah, and you look at the quarterbacks that have been a part of dynasties, and you think of, Tom Brady and Troy Aikman and Joe Montana and, Terry Bradshaw, and you don't think of them as these. You think of them as pocket pass, right? You think of them as more in the Burrow mode than the Josh Allen mold, where you might put Rodgers and Elway. And, I think there's something to that. I think there's something to just the absolute, not that Allen is not a cool customer, but Burrow is just completely unflappable. He is so good when it comes to the timing routes and the anticipation throws and protecting the football. And now he's just incredible at avoiding sacks. He really even behind this line, he just gets the ball out so fast. So, I honestly might agree with Burrow QB2. At this point, I still think Mahomes is number one.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there's a very, very real chance that he took the worst franchise, the poorest franchise, the one who never made any moves, the one who's just been irrelevant for 20 years. And I mean, really, it took him a year. And now might be in the Super Bowl 2 years in a row. Like, that is crazy. And it hasn't happened yet. It hasn't happened yet, but the fact that they're in the AFC Championship and they might be favored in that game, considering their history with the Chiefs and Mahomes' injury. So, like, right now, I mean, it's crazy. It's completely crazy. And, you gotta, I mean, you know me, I have not been the world's biggest Joe Burrow supporter in the past. And I think I've definitely focused on his flaws way more than anyone else, or not anyone, but most people. Right. And, at this point, like, I think that this is fair analysis. I think that anyone just has to take their hats off and tip him, because it's been an incredible job.
He's looked amazing, and he didn't look like this last year. Matt, you were saying earlier, I don't know if you mentioned it on the podcast already, but everyone was giving him his flowers last year, so much to the point where you don't know if they're going to be able to see just how much of a step he took from last year to this year. And I think you're absolutely right about that. And
we were talking another about guy that on the podcast before. He's just a totally different player and gotten so much better. Even when he was getting all the hype last year, it's really crazy.
I think that this Burrow, like, I just don't think there's any way he takes 9 sacks and is in a close game with a pretty bad, like, 1 seed. Like, I get they were the 1 seed, but that Titans team, like, this Burrow with Chase and Higgins and all that, like, I just don't think he takes 9 sacks. And I think that game isn't even close when the Bengals offense is firing on all cylinders like it is right now. I mean, just look at where they finished, like, last year in a bunch of offensive stats compared to this year. Last year, they it kind of felt fluky last year. It kind of felt like they were, like, we were talking about that maybe with the Jaguars. Like, if they made the run, it would be the Bengals run, right? If you make a run when you're not supposed to, that's kind of what the 2021 Bengals felt like. These Bengals just feel like they're totally in control, and they're arguably the best team in the league and can definitely win the Super Bowl. But
they look amazing. And also, we got to give credit to Zach Taylor. We were talking about that dude needed. We were talking, or even, like, obviously last year, I know Bengals fans wanted him gone, but even this year, we're talking partway through the season.
Bengals fan wanted him gone last year, but he was not the catalyst. Yeah.
No. And even this year, a lot of people were talking about through the early weeks of the season, man, should he be fired? Right. But dog, I mean, he's just been, just the turnaround has been incredible. It's been absolutely incredible.
Everyone's been cooking. And I read an article today. And it reminded me on why I was so down on them in the first place. It was from 2020. I read this during the game, but it was talking about how the defensive coordinator, Lou, he was so unapproachable, and he was swearing, and he was losing a handle on the locker room. And, like, they were this close to getting fired, man. The reports coming out of there was Zach Taylor didn't know what he was doing. It was just a completely toxic environment that Burrow came into. And I mean, just and that's why I was so low on him. I was like, I don't think a coach knows what he's doing. Like, no one likes the coordinator. There were, like, some quotes in the media from the players where they were like, kind of taking shots at each other. And that's what it was like. And now it's just so completely different. And every year, everyone has gotten, like, way better. It's crazy. The turnaround. I mean, and Burrow, since it's every season. Going back to college, right? To go from a nobody. He was a nobody. He wasn't going to get drafted to the first overall pick. And then, the rookie year is whatever. And then all of a sudden he's like, a top 10 quarterback the next year. And now he's arguably, like, the best in the league. Like, it just is these strides that he takes every year they're always astronomical.
And, it sounds like bad analysis, but truly, man, because he went to LSU and they were whatever for the first season, and then it's like, okay, this guy's awesome. Same thing at the Bengals. It's like whatever first season, then he's got it. I don't know what to tell you about him, man.
This reminds me of someone else that always gets better, and another team that just looked unstoppable in their playoff win. Jalen Hurts and the Eagles stomped the Giants. I mean, that game was never close. we're out at the bar watching this, and there's like Eagles fans and Giants fans everywhere, and it's just like every 5-10 minutes it just erupts into fly Eagles fly. Like it's just it's great. It's great. I mean, they looked phenomenal. They could run the ball really well. Hurts looked pinpoint, like he hasn't skipped a beat at all. I mean, it was just a top to bottom great performance.
They're going to win this Super Bowl. They're going to win the Super Bowl, man. They're going to win the Super Bowl. All right. I think we look at what's happened so far. The best roster, the best 4 rosters are the rosters that are here. All right.
Yeah.
It comes down to health. And it comes down to roster construction. It comes down to luck. And I can't predict luck, but this Eagles team is probably the healthiest in the league right now, right? Trey Hendrickson got banged up. Mahomes is banged up. The 49ers are, it's honestly
the Niners are healthy, but bro, Purdy, and we'll talk about.
We'll see. I do think the top to bottom, I do think the Eagles have the better roster than the 49ers do, but like they're just the healthiest team with the best roster right now, and they took the Giants to the woodshed and they shot them out back, and I think they're going to do the same. I just think this team's a buzzsaw. I mean, what would have to happen for this team to lose? It just like. It would just be so out of character for any one unit to fail. I mean, like, oh, they're just getting killed.
I can see the world where a Mahomes or a Burrow have a really nice game and win in a shootout. That much I can. I mean, this team's lost before, fair and square, but.
Yeah, but they lost
once.
Because
that's all it takes.
They've lost one with Jalen Hurts because the Commanders were just able to retain like 65% time of possession, and no one else has been able to do that since.
Have they played a team as good as the 49ers or the Chiefs or the Bengals? These are going to be the next 2 toughest games.
No.
So I think they're beatable. I agree that they're the favorites for a reason. And I agree. I think they're going to beat the 49ers and whatnot, but I don't think they're completely unbeatable. This is still football.
No, they're not. I shouldn't say they're completely unbeatable, but like, man, it's just all their units are so good. And I've talked about this, and it's like, what does a failure look like? It would surprise me to see Slay, and like, even if they played Mahomes and they played, like, it would surprise me if the pass rush wasn't getting home. It would surprise me if there's separation all over the place with these corners that they've got. Like, it would surprise me if, it would surprise me if they couldn't run the football. It would surprise me if they shut down AJ Brown. Like there would have to be a point of failure that we've seen once this year, like literally once when they play with Hurts. Like,
I remember Jacksonville played them pretty well, but I can't. I'm struggling to remember exactly how that game went, so I might go back and watch.
Well, I mean, and if we're talking about Washington running all over them and controlling the time of possession, is that insane to think that the 49ers could try to do that?
No, I guess it's not that insane. I do think that they've got the edge in the interior of the offensive line. I think once again, I mentioned that in the Seahawks game, and I think once again versus Dallas, that came back to bite them a little bit. Like they couldn't move the football very much at all. There were, I thought the interior kind of got shredded again, and I think that it could have, like, if they've got, I think, is Jordan Davis healthy? I can't ever tell. Is Jordan Davis healthy?
It's so hard to
Jordan Davis has played like 2 games where he's had more than a third of the snaps defensively.
Yeah, it's been a very low snap count for him.
So we'll see. But I think that, like, even so, I think they can create some mismatches in the interior of the line, and then it comes down to, the kind of the funky stuff and how much can the 49ers run on you like that. I honestly don't even think of the 49ers as, like, when I think of them winning, it's not so much anymore like the game against the Packers where they ran it. They only passed it 9 times the whole game, and now I just think of all the crossing routes that they and and that could happen. That could happen, but
yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too much into that before we talk about the Giants. I think if we're going to talk about a team that is ahead of schedule, but the Jags are supposed to, like, be on the up and up. This is a team that is supposed to be, like, next year is like, that's the year. Like, they've got to start really looking great. The Giants were definitely ahead of schedule this year. Theo, you had them going 2-15 in the season, and maybe you jinxed them. Maybe you jinxed them. But
$1,000 to the next 2-15 predict. I'll give you a 2-15 prediction for $2,000. Just Gonna throw that out there.
What if?
Anyway,
what
go
about
ahead,
for
Blaiden.
me? What about for me? What if I want?
If you pay me
I want you to
Browns 2-15, it's
I don't
on
get
the
a
way,
discount.
Chris.
I don't get a discount. That's
For
crazy.
Deshaun Watson, it's actually $4,000. It's actually $5,000. You get for the Browns. Yeah, you're getting a big markup. Actually,
$26,000. One for anyway. Yeah, I mean the Giants are way ahead of schedule. And I do think that like they have a lot of money to work with, especially like if you move Kenny Golladay and you move Leonard Williams, that's a lot of money. Like they're gonna have like $70 million to work with this offseason. So
it's really interesting.
Yeah, I think they have a lot. I think they have a lot of possibilities for what they could do. So yeah, I'm just excited.
I got no clue what they're gonna do.
but they're ahead of schedule, but they've almost played them. They've almost played themselves out of maybe the right move sometimes because Daniel Jones. I think you should keep rolling with Daniel Jones because I think he showed enough this year.
You don't really have any alternatives, so
you don't have many great alternatives. You look at Hurts last year, and I think maybe you could say the same thing. Like, you know, Hurts sold in that last playoff game, and you thought, you know, they played them. They were so ahead of schedule, but like, is Hurts actually the guy? I think you got to stick with Danny Dimes after what he did this year, but it's all about the right price. And Saquon is also a free agent. So, I mean, if you hand those guys massive extensions, I think it's very possible that Mara does that. But I also think that handing a massive extension to Saquon, a running back, a Daniel Jones, a quarterback who, you know, did a great job this year, I think, but maybe didn't show that huge ceiling raising like potential, I think. And before
that's
Giants fans get all mad at
Hurts.
me,
that's the difference with Hurts. Hurts with a second round pick on a rookie deal,
who had started like one season, who had obviously high upside with his rushing. I think I agree.
And his contract wasn't up, right?
Yeah,
his contract wasn't up. That's the big deal. So if you hand these guys, and again, like Giants fans are going to get so mad at me, like, what do you mean he didn't elevate the offense? Like the guy hits. I know PFF numbers are not the gospel. I know, but he hit 7 big time throws all year. Josh Allen hit 7 big time throws in the Miami game, and people will tell you he didn't even play well. Okay. He really didn't show that like crazy high upside as I think one of the top dudes in the league. I'm sorry. And if you watch the tape, I know the wide receivers can be sorry at times. I get it. But if you watch the tape, there were times where I think things were open, tight window throws were as open as tight window throws and open is an oxymoron. But there were times where I think it would have been appropriate to try to test be aggressive and test a window downfield. And he didn't really do it. But that doesn't mean he can't develop that with better protection and better receivers, right? So it'll be a very interesting thing because they're so ahead of schedule. And this year was supposed to be a kind of an evaluation year for Daboll and the new GM. And we'll see what they do. I think I would definitely be down to bring back Daniel Jones and Saquon, but it's not no matter what, right? I'm not paying them, you know, Saquon the $15 million a year contract or Daniel Jones the $35 million a year contract. It's got to be with the right price. You got to be, I think, perhaps a bit. I don't know if self-aware is the word, but that's just what I would do. So,
yeah, no, I think that's fair. But if we want to talk about the game that just happened tonight, where the Cowboys were the Cowboys, I mean,
they were
like
the
when
Cowboys.
Juju said the Browns is the Browns, like the Cowboys is the Cowboys, dog. They can never just be good, right? They beat the Buccaneers, but Maher misses 4 extra points, which hasn't happened in like 80 years. And then tonight, Maher is he's actually hitting his field goals and whatnot, and they can start to trust him a little bit more. The defense is playing great, but Dak Prescott just lays the fattest egg probably of his whole career. This is one of the worst games I've seen from him.
The 49ers defense is so good and the windows close so fast that I don't. Well, look. He played bad. The windows closed fast.
No,
they do. Look, is this not true?
In this game,
this is not an excuse. Look, the 49ers defense deserves some credit too. Look, I'm saying this. He forced things in windows that he thought was there, and the 49ers defense, like, you got to be aware, dude, like, you got to see these things, man, right? These guys are flying around. There's a tight window, and he's so aggressive. He loves to throw it in tight windows, and he's just doing that. And like these linebackers are too fast, man. Like they're just they close the space. Like the drop pick, Greenlaw almost ended the game on that drop pick, right? And there was a second where you could maybe see it, and Dak threw it a little bit late, and Greenlaw is a fucking gremlin demon, like bat out of hell, flies right through it. So I'm not again, this is not a Dak excuse. It's also like, man, these linebackers and all these guys were really, really flying to the football, and Dak was trying to be aggressive. He was trying to fit it in tight windows, and I mean, he got picked off. He played terrible. He stunk. I'm not going to sit here and make an excuse.
I don't even think it was always like the closing windows stuff. I mean, to me, a lot of those, I'm watching from the broadcasting. I'm just thinking, why the hell did you?
The first one,
that?
I don't know what he was thinking.
The first one, I simply do
not know.
And even on the deep shots, like the one to Lamb, underthrown, right? And it was an underthrown pass interference, one of those plays. And Lamb caught it. Great catch by Lamb.
That was
and then he had
that was an amazing.
And then there was another one that to Gallup, where he kind of broke on the same route that they had, that the 49ers got with Kittle. That the 49ers had with Kittle, exact same move, fading outside and then hit the skinny post back in. And Prescott just led him way too far outside, and he couldn't get back to make the catch. I mean, it's just like missed throw after missed throw.
Seemed nervous. I don't know. He was just, I don't know what to say. Like, yeah, he played terrible. And I think like on that throw you're talking about with Gallup, there was a bit of pressure, and he just threw it up, and it was terrible, right? I just think he was feeling the heat. I think he was feeling the like Bosa and Armstead and, you know, the pressure of having to win this game. And I think he was forcing things, and he was just off his game, right? It was a chance for a legacy game, and I don't know if I've ever seen a legacy moment go as poorly as that drive where he almost
last week was his legacy moment, man. Let him have last week.
This is the Patreon where we're talking about the Patreon for draft prospects, where you can pay an extra tier to like have someone delete film for you. This would be one of those matchups. And in the last drive, like he was in the end zone, and he just like almost took that safety. They like ran right into somebody. I'm like, are you blind? There's a guy there. And he did it to like throw it out of bounds anyway, or throw it like damn near out of bounds. Like he just ran right into it, dude. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What are you?
The first pass when it was like 3 minutes left. The first pass on that drive was almost a pick. Like,
yeah. I don't know what the dude was thinking, but that was not a shining moment. And my thing is, like, I don't really let bad playoff performance. I ran a poll today because I saw Diggs getting a lot of slander, and Jefferson got a lot of slander, and Allen. Anyone who loses, like everyone gets slandered, and I get that. That's the game, right? It's funny. I'll do it too. My opinions after bad playoff performances or really good playoff performances don't really change that much. Like I think I'm more traits based when it comes to my opinions, and no one's traits really change in a result of a game. I think their legacy changes. I think their reputation changes, but like from a trait standpoint, I really don't change my mind on guys. So I don't really think that much differently about Prescott. Like I think his strengths are still his strengths, his weaknesses are still his weaknesses, and it was a horrible game. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. I'm not going to sit here and make excuses. I know I want to credit the 49ers. Like Fred Warner had a play tonight where he was mugged up in the A gap. Did you see this? This was the craziest play I've ever seen a linebacker made.
I know exactly what play you're talking about.
He was mugged up in the A gap, and CeeDee Lamb is running up the seam, and he runs from the line of scrimmage and carries one of the like top 10 receivers in the league up the seam. Like who? And Blaiden, you asked earlier, what's preventing Milano from being the best linebacker in the league?
I'm watching this game, and I'm like, you know what? Yeah.
Fred Warner, there's a guy in the league who can do that. Everyone else, like, there's some other great linebackers like Nick Bolton and, Roquan Smith. And there's I don't want to like just rattle off all the names, but like, Milano has an argument maybe over those guys, but he doesn't have an argument over Warner because Warner can do that. And Greenlaw is great too, like I said. And yeah, it was that is really freaky. That was
I think
really
it was.
scary.
I think it was Bosa that said like this defense isn't anything without Greenlaw. Like because everyone was like giving their props to Warner
and Hufanga. Hufanga played a great game tonight too.
Hufanga balled, but I just remember. I think it was Bosa that was like this defense isn't this defense without Greenlaw. Give that man his flowers. He's a dog.
He doesn't make it. He doesn't get any respect because he plays with Fred Warner. He missed the Pro Bowl. He missed everything and missed All Pro and whatever. But it's because he plays with Warner. But he's like also any other team in the league. Greenlaw would be a Pro Bowler because he wouldn't be overshadowed because he's also like he's like him and. It's not an era where linebackers get enough shine, but I think the duo of Greenlaw and Warner should be thought of as like Urlacher and Briggs, or like maybe not Kuechly and Thomas Davis level, but
yeah, I would agree. Maybe not quite there. I would
not, but I think as the years go by we think about like great linebacker duos, no one is going to think of Warner and Greenlaw, and we should. That's kind of where I'm at.
Because Greenlaw's just not like a big name, but he's
not a big name. He's not
great.
A big name by himself. Yeah,
but he's awesome.
And Hufanga, he played great. I know. I kind of laughed when he made first team All Pro, and I think he had bad eyes and was responsible for some blown coverages in the back half of the season. But I mean, in the playoffs so far, 2 games so far, I think that he's played pretty great. So, credit where it's due. Yeah,
ultimately, I mean, they were just flying. They were just flying. Yeah. A lot like the Bengals. I mean, they just as soon as a pass is caught, like in the Bengals game, it was Mike Hilton. As soon as the pass is caught, he is in your face, blowing you up. Yep. And it was the same thing today. Every single pass was just collapsed upon. And I know a lot of people were talking about, like, was that supposed to be a hook and lateral at the end on that last play? And I think it was just a terrible play design altogether because of the way that they've been collapsing. Like, if you're going to try and do that, you need so much more space.
Yeah, he got his shit rocked.
Yeah, he just got Turpin just got crushed. But they were just collapsing on everything so fast. And that last play, I think, was truly one of the worst play designs I've ever seen. Like going back to that Colts fake punt, whatever. I think it was like it is up there with like levels of horrible play designs.
I don't know. I don't want to give too much like shit to it because the chance of anything working is about 0%.
True,
so like with this,
at least
I was like whatever. But it was just went so hilarious. It was so outside. It was so unorthodox. Like when you have them like they're doing so much just for it to end like that. It was just like, well, that was what do we do that for? So I mean, there's nothing that would have worked in that moment. Like it would have.
I would have just tried a Hail Mary. People have gotten away from the Hail Mary too much.
80-yard throw.
I don't care.
I don't care.
I don't care.
You're paying Dak $40 million a year. If he can't get that thing 85 yards,
bro, like,
I don't want him.
Have him get like we're just moving the offensive line right. Everyone slide right. Dak, you're getting out there and just launch that shit.
That is like
I don't care.
Going to work.
It would have been better than what we saw, bro.
Look, you're right. Well, maybe it would have bounced around and someone would have caught it.
Like you could have gotten a defensive pass interference. You could have gotten a defensive pass interference.
They don't call those on Hail Marys unless Tom Brady unless Tom Brady is throwing the pass. That's the only time I've ever seen that happen. Tom Brady threw a Hail Mary and the league threw they made the call and they threw the flag. I saw it happen.
I was wondering
there's nothing
before it happened. Do you think me personally, this is a hot take, I like the lateral plays better than a Hail Mary. I feel like
I have watched Rodgers complete so many that I think a Hail Mary has like a 50. They have like a 50% shot to work.
Ever live, and it never ever happens.
I've seen multiple Hail Marys completed against the Browns.
Okay, well, I'm for sure.
That's true. There have been like a couple.
But, the laterals are way cooler.
I don't know. I do. I mean, I think I've seen one lateral work in my lifetime ever, which was obviously the Miracle in Miami. Speaking of which, I want to no more putting offensive players back. Did you see Gabe Davis? Like Gabe Davis, like misjudged that so badly. It's like, well, it's like, why are we
big game? But he's big game Gabe.
Like, I get that nothing happened, but you can just see, like, he doesn't know what he's fucking doing back there. Like, I don't care. Get a bottom of the roster corner. I don't care. Like, it's more likely to. I just don't like it.
We got Gabe Davis at cornerback. We got Ezekiel Elliott at center. Like, just throw the damn ball.
It's just
normal players.
It doesn't matter that he. It's like what? It's like, oh, you know, he's got good hands. He can catch it, and then do what? Right? It doesn't matter if he catches it. Just knock the fucking ball down. Just like, okay, if your corners can't do that,
oh, but he's
why are they on the
6'4".
fucking team? I get that he's big, but like most of these corners have like 40-inch verticals. I've never seen. Yeah. I just never really seen a Hail Mary where it's like, oh,
thank God they put in the wide receiver.
Thank God, like, yeah, that if it would have. The defensive backs just needed to be able to.
The only Hail Mary where I've seen the receiver,
they needed a better catch radius.
Lost was the AJ Green against the Browns. That is the closest thing I've seen to that, or maybe the D-Hop one.
The D-Hop one doesn't even count because there were 4 guys on it. Like if one of those guys was Gabe Davis, like D-Hop is probably he'd be like, yeah, he'd be doing what he did in this game, which was jump, like while the ball sails 5 feet over his head. Like they get,
you know, those guys don't want to go do that. You know, they're sitting. He's like, all right, I guess I'm out here for the
really. I think it's the opposite. I think they really want to do it, and I think the coaching staff is like, I guess if you, I don't know, maybe I don't know because it just doesn't. It seems like the coaching staff wouldn't just be like
they would want to do
Davis,
it if it's an actual Hail Mary, but if it's a hook and lateral and a receiver is out there. I don't think they'd want to be out there.
Right. Like, what? Did we not learn anything? Like, Belichick's never going to do that shit ever again, probably. I hope there's no clips of him, like, doing it after that
Hunter Henry
happened,
is out there. And
it's stupid, but, yeah, that's the last thing I got to say about it.
I want to see a quarterback out there at safety. Make Mac Jones roam the middle of the field.
Yeah, why not have Josh Allen edge rush because he's big and he's
he's out and this is Josh Allen edge rusher. And
I don't care. Just play people in their positions. God damn it.
All right. Well, I think we have to address the elephant in the room, and I don't think I'm particularly qualified to hit on this topic. So, Theo, I'm going to toss it to you for your perspective.
The horrific incidents that occurred this weekend that we need to talk about. I saw this and my jaw was on the floor. I couldn't believe that I saw such unprofessionalism, and it was an embarrassing display from Shannon Sharp at the Lakers versus Grizzlies game. I had to cover my eyes, and my mother was screaming when she saw.
I had to send my 3-year-old daughter out of the room.
What is that man doing? What is that man doing?
Why? My hands on my headset. I don't know.
What is he doing? I don't know what he's doing. It was like what we saw at Crypto Arena that night was like, you know, the painting, the Garden of Heavenly Delights, where things like start out very serene, and then like as it's in 3 panels, and like as the panels go on, they just become more and more ungodly and chaotic as the world and humanity descends into hell. What I saw from what was it? Was it Dylan Brooks and T. Moran? What Grizzly was it? That he was so mad at.
Yeah, I think it was, oh my God, I can't even remember now. I mean, I've been trying so hard to forget that this all happened, considering how much it sickened me.
Therapy and many therapy sessions. And yeah, I just feel like we got to say that us here at Stay Hot do not, as sports personalities, we would never
I would never
yell. I would never do something like that. And if I was playing basketball, I would take the high road and I would never retaliate. That was what has our country become? Where we've got Hall of Fame tight ends. Man, and yes. I don't know. Yeah, I thought that was a very silly scenario. I thought I thought it was just the escalation of it, where Shannon Sharp was just yelling about, like, you can't guard LeBron, and he was just like, and they were like, shut up, and he was like, no, and then he was like, come here, he was like pointing to him, like in front of him, like, you come here. It was just peak like old person, like son, come, you sit your, and then Steven Adams came over, who's like 7 feet tall. I think the NBA is just, it's such a funny league, man. It is just nonstop entertainment. Earlier that day, I was talking about how I think a lot of people who, watch a lot of reality TV and, aren't very interested in sports, but they're like part of maybe Stan Twitter, and when celebrities beef, they're all over it. But they don't pay attention to the National Basketball Association or sports in general, and everyone really should, because even if you don't care about competition, like, nothing can beat just how fucking stupid it all is. Because I don't know, it's awesome.
Oh, it is awesome. I love Shannon Sharp, man. He's going out there and like straight up fighting the other team because they're talking about LeBron. He's just like me. He's one of the strongest Bron soldiers out there. So I've got his back.
No Bron defender has ever taken it to the front lines the way that quite like Shannon Sharp did.
People on TikTok have been referring to LeBron as my glorious king recently. That's been killing me. I make a video and all the top comments are just like, yes, speak highly of my glorious king.
Because it's gotten to the point where the debate between like LeBron and Jordan, every point has already been made on it. Like, there's no one is saying anything new anymore. So it's just, what the LeBron fans have done is they have just become funnier than Michael Jordan like fans and Michael Jordan GOAT defenders. They don't know how to, like, they're never going to refer to MJ as like my glorious king or like come up with some fun nickname. But the LeBron fans are winning this battle just by being like dickheads about it at this point. They've just embraced the absurdity of how much that gets brought up. So
him breaking,
I hope that happens one day.
When he breaks, yeah, Matt, I know you're going to be obnoxious, and I'm looking forward to that day.
I have plans. I have plans.
He said I have
plans. I do, man. I swear to God.
What are you going to do, dog?
I've got videos
He's going to storm Chicago's stadium.
The Charlotte Hornets. He's going to be attending the Hornets game with Michael Jordan, and he's going to make an attempt to reach Michael Jordan, to rush him. And, I don't know.
You'll never be as good as Bron.
I don't know. It's such a funny scenario. At this point, LeBron is just he's just funny. It's just any LeBron dialogue these days. It used to make me angry. I used to fight about it. You can go back, for those who don't know the lore, and read my arguments with Scott Van Pelt, LeBron versus Jordan. I used to argue it. At this point, I just sit back and laugh. But when LeBron does break the scoring record, I mean, he's already the greatest of all time. And the scoring record, like, longevity does matter in that debate. Like, if you play for a really long time, you are adding value for a really long time. And eventually, like, you pass guys who didn't play as long. That's just kind of how it works. So yes, the longevity stat and the accolades do matter, not to turn this into a LeBron fest, but
to do exactly that, because there's really nothing wrong with that at all. It's not really that it's not like we're going to wake up one day and all of a sudden LeBron's like legacy is way better. Like, ultimately it's just going to be like a 30-point difference from one night to another. But it's the fact that he's going to like demolish the record. It's going to come down to, like, if he really chose to, he could probably beat it by like 7,000, 8,000 points and make it just totally untouchable. And it's like the top achievement that you could possibly, it's like the thing to do. And as far as records go. So
yeah. And for someone who's not a scorer as well, right? Like for someone who's not real, like he is a scorer, obviously he scored the most points of anybody, but like he's not
Kevin Durant.
He's not Kobe or MJ breaking, like no one, like you said, Matt, the record doesn't make him the top scorer of all time, right? That's not quite his game, but he's said himself, and I think the numbers back this up. He's always been kind of a playmaker as well as a scorer, and to, he could, that was his game, he could have broken this record a long time ago, and to have that play style and still probably beat it by a bunch is going to be, it's going to be crazy. That's a crazy thing to just go out and do until Luka beats it when they invent mech suits so he can play into his 70s.
Braun.
But yes, that is just one other thing that has dominated sports. Is there any other stupid sports dialogue that you've seen?
I don't know. Theo, I saw one of your tweets get posted to the Panthers subreddit.
Were they being mad at me, or were they being?
Oh, they were very mad at you because it was the tweet where you ironically said a guy like me is making those moves. You said,
I'm not letting.
For context, I said the Panthers not signing Hassan Reddick ruined my life, and Theo responded and said, I would have signed Reddick and then traded Burns for 2 firsts and a second, and everything would have been great. And then a guy like me would make those moves, though. It got posted to the Panthers subreddit, and they were not very happy.
Oh, God.
What they could be mad?
They said it was hindsight 2020, dog. Signing Reddick was not a hindsight move, guys. Obviously they should have brought him back instead of holding on to money to keep Deshaun, to try to go get Deshaun Watson.
He had 13 sacks his last year at Arizona, and then they went to Carolina and also had 13 sacks. At that point, he might just be worth bringing back. Instead, you let him go to the Eagles, and the Eagles didn't even sign him for big money that they couldn't afford. It's not like, he signed this $100 million deal. That wasn't, no, he was a steal. And then obviously you should have traded Brian Burns for 2 first-round picks if that deal is actually true.
This is the thinking with this. The Panthers are killing me right now. The Panthers fan base, they're just not just a subreddit, and I look at that, but just in general, it's like the whole thought with the Burns is well, then we'd need an edge rusher, and it's so hard to get one. So actually, I'd rather have Burns. And it's dude, it's just it just doesn't work like that. And they're talking right now about They think Trey Lance is going to be available for a third, and they're discussing right now, would you make that move?
I've seen that tweet.
Half of them are saying no. So it's I don't know. And I people get mad at me, so I've just taken the complete opposite side. I said, if we don't take a quarterback in the first round, I hate this team or whatever. And I stand by that, man. I'm sick. I'm sick of it.
Hey, if you had signed Hassan Reddick, then you wouldn't have needed an edge rusher. And you could have traded Brian Burns.
We got to keep together this pass rush that is not that good, man.
Oh, just wait till you keep together these corners that are not that good.
We already did. We already paid
Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson is on the way. He's on the way.
He's going to save the
Anthony
day,
Richardson. The Anthony Richardson agenda, I've got to scout a little bit more, but it's getting closer and closer to. You're getting close. People on the podcast heard it first, but the Anthony Richardson agenda is loading. It's in the chamber right now, ready to get fired. Yeah, I hinted at it today when he read 1 through 5 and found the check down and, looked off a safety with a pump fake. And, that opened up a window, which he didn't quite throw into, but it would have been a tough move. I like the eye movement and manipulation anyway. But yeah, there's something there. He's not someone that you have to build up from the ground up. I think that's maybe the way to put it, where it's are there flaws with his process? Absolutely. But is it something where you have to forget everything, all your bad habits you relied on aren't going to fly anymore? That's not what he is. He's someone that there's good stuff there. You're on the right track. You just need a little bit more time. So that's kind of, I think, though, it's not a ground up rebuild like some project quarterbacks are. It's continue to grow your good stuff, and then we're good. But anyway, subscribe to the Substack to
subscribe
hear
to
more.
this. Well, I think that pretty much sums it up for this episode. Looking forward to talking about these conference championship matchups. I imagine they'll be amazing. But thank you all so much for tuning in. As always, tons and tons of content coming on all platforms. And as always, from Corn Boy, Bird Boy, and Lemon Boy, we will catch you all on the flippity flop.